Hello, this is Daniel Mart back again, and for this week, I am gonna do it. I'm gonna do my top 25 favorite movies from last year, from 2023. And before I actually begin, just keep in mind that these are my personal opinions, my personal favorites. So, if you see something on the list and you're wondering why it's on the list, well, at the end of the day, I liked it, and that's why. And then on top of that, also keep in mind that I haven't seen every single movie that came out last year. There's a bunch of movies from last year that I still want to watch, and I just haven't had the time to watch them. The Zone of Interest, Iron Claw, and Godzilla Minus One are for me the three biggest ones I still want to watch that I just haven't had time to watch, and that's why they're not going to be on the list. So let's get on it to number 25. Let's go. And number 25 is Mob King, and this is probably the one movie that on the list that nobody has ever heard of. The reason I have it, it's basically because it's a local film. It's a film from South Florida. I know a lot of talent that worked on it both in front and behind the camera, and that's a huge part of the reason why I have it at number 25, because I just know a lot of the people who worked on this film. And honestly, the story's good. The story's good. I really like it. Mob King, it's about a mob king who is trying to reestablish his life after some events, involving the mafia that revolve around him. And he's trying to reestablish his life with his family. And Ciro DiPaggio, who's the main actor, he did a great job. I personally know Ciro. I personally know Celine Alva, who is also in this film. I personally know a lot of the talent, both in front and behind the camera. That I've worked with some of these people, Celine, Ciro, Jokes, who's the director. So I personally know a lot of these people. So just seeing what they were able to accomplish after all this time, because I also know how hard they all worked on this, especially with the whole pandemic setting them back by a lot. It was just amazing, and I'm really disappointed that I wasn't able to go to their premiere event because I was out of town when that happened. They had a whole premiere event here at the Hard Rock, and it was huge. A lot of people went. A lot of people. People loved it. The reception was great, and I'm really disappointed that I couldn't go, but I was just out of town during that time. But yeah, I'm sure it would have been incredible to experience that on the big screen. And yeah, overall, well acted, well written. Overall, it's just a really great film, and you can watch it on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken, if you guys really want to go check it out. On to number 24. And number 24, I have Nimona. This is on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, it's a very fun movie. It's a lot better than I thought it had any right to be, or that I even expected. It's one of those movies that I saw the plot and I'm like, I'm not really sure if that could interest me. But let's see. And honestly, I found it to be a way deeper and more profound film than I initially expected, especially with all the whole thing with Nimona possibly being, well, not even possibly, it's just them just being gender fluid in general. I thought the way they handled that topic was very interesting and very, I guess, enlightening, especially because it's something you don't really see that often in animated movies, especially those geared towards children. And I was very happy to see this film. It's one of those movies that it's basically here on the list because it exceeded my expectations to such a degree, because I didn't think it was going to be bad, but I thought it was just going to be average. That's how I would describe it. I thought it was going to be average. And no, it turned out to be a lot better than I thought it would be. I thought the animation was going to bother me, and it did a little bit at first, but once I got used to it, I did fall in love with the animation overall. Overall, really great movie. I was really taken aback by it. I was really surprised by it, and overall, the story is just great. It's perfection. It flowed really nicely, and because this is based on a graphic novel, on a comic, I am kind of interested on reading the actual comic that this is based off of. At number 23, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't always been the biggest fan of the Guardians movies. Now, that's not to say that I always thought they were bad, or they're just bad movies. I always thought they were good movies, but that's really it. They're not really my favorite Marvel movies. Maybe now, given how Marvel really took a step back. But, yeah, it's one of those things that the Guardian movies, they're fun to watch, but I wouldn't go out and say that they're my favorite movies. In fact, when I first saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, almost 10 years ago, goddamn. But when I first saw the first one, I really did. It's not that I didn't like it, but I thought it was very subpar. It took me a few rewatches to finally properly appreciate it. And same thing with the second one. So But I think this one, just right off the bat, is the strongest one. It's kind of proof of the fact that because we've spent so much time with these characters, and not just in the Guardians movies, but also in the Avengers movies, in the Thor, Ragnarok, I believe it's Ragnarok, or no, Love and Thunder, because we spent time with them in Love and Thunder and all these other movies, that we really got to have this close bond with him, especially with Rocket Raccoon, who basically carries this movie. You know, just seeing his emotional journey, especially when you remember how he was all the way back in Guardians 1 to now. I just thought it was very powerful, very emotional, and I do think there are some stuff that could have been improved. There's a lot of stuff in Marvel that could be improved right now, to be honest. But I think out of the Marvel movies that came out this year, this is by far the best one, which isn't saying a lot given how some of the other movies kind of were. So, yeah. Next up at number 22, another superhero movie, was Blue Beetle. So before I actually get on to Blue Beetle, I'm not sure if I should be surprised or not at given the current conversation with comic book movies in general, or superhero movies in general, because last year was basically a flop buster year. A lot of these big franchise movies did flop, and a lot of these franchise movies happen to be superhero movies. And to kind of go along with it, DC is going to be shifting away from the DCEU. So, I mean, right off the bat, we don't even know if Blue Beetle is going to fit into James Gunn's new DC universe. I kind of hope he does, though. I really do hope he does, because one, we get a Latino superhero in the mix right off the bat, which is great. Number two, I actually really did like the portrayal of Blue Beetle. I forget who the actor's name is, but I know he's from like Cobra Kai. But I really do like the portrayal of Blue Beetle. I thought he was very enjoyable. I thought he was very, very fun. And you also have George Lopez in here, which is the funniest thing ever. I don't think I really knew George Lopez was going to be in this movie before he actually came on screen. So just seeing him was just a surprise. It was a pleasant surprise. And yes, I'll admit the movie does have its problems. The flat villains are flat. I'm not going to deny that. But overall, I just had a lot of fun with this movie. And I think to a certain extent, that's all you need to do. Just let me have fun with this movie. And the fact that they're Latino superheroes, even though we're not the same, because they're Mexican, I'm Colombian, Peruvian, even though we're not the same race, so to speak, the fact that I was still able to connect with them on that level further helped my connection with the character, with Blue Beetle in general, and just the overall story, and I really liked it. And honestly, there's also some deeper topics that were discussed in this movie that, again, I didn't expect, mostly about immigration, which, given the current state of politics, is a way to go. And it's just, it's not something you really expect it's not really something you expect to be touched in a superhero film. And the fact that it was touched, I thought was very interesting, even though maybe not the best way to handle it, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah, but overall, it's a very surprising movie. I had fun with it, and sometimes that's all that matters. You just need to have fun with it. At number 21, we have American Symphony. So this is a documentary. So yeah, you are going to see a few documentaries here on the list. And this is based on John Baptiste. I believe that's how you say his name. I didn't really know much about him before I saw this documentary. I knew he was a composer. I knew he was like a jazz musician, something like that. But that's really as far as I know. And just seeing this documentary, and this is during the time when he was winning Grammys around 2018, 2019, 2020, somewhere around there, for some of the work he had done during that time. I'm not really too familiar with this artist. I'm not too familiar with his work, but just seeing the troubles and tribulation that he had in producing his work, and both in his professional career life and his personal life, was just very interesting, especially with the storyline with him and his wife, because his wife is sick. I forget what it's with, cancer maybe. I don't know. It's correction is right there, but seeing how he struggles with that as well. Overall, I just thought it was a really good, fun. Maybe fun's not the best word for this, but like a very enlightening story to see, especially because it's from an artist I'm not usually traditionally used to seeing music that I usually don't hear at all about, especially because I'm not too into the Grammys at all. So having that take a large portion of the movie, having that be a huge focus of the movie, was very, I guess, intriguing, interesting. I know I'm running out of words, but that's really what it is. It's interesting, and seeing his journey from Juilliard, which is where he first started, or even at home when he was like just hitting pots and pans. So going from that journey all the way to him being a Grammy award-winning artist, and then what comes afterwards was very amazing, very inspiring, and I really did like it. I liked it, I think, a lot more than I thought I would too originally. At number 20, I have Godland, and to be honest, I kind of wonder if I should even put it on the list, because I guess technically it's a 2022 movie. It's one of those things where it had its festival run in 2022, but even then, it was a very limited festival run, and it didn't have its wide release till 2023. To be fair, I put it on the list thinking it was a 23 movie, and I didn't realize, or I didn't know about the whole film festival run until about a few days ago when I started looking at the movie, some of the behind the scenes about the movie. So I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna take it off the list though, because it's a really good movie. It's a really good movie. I don't care. Okay, if anything, this is a top 24 list with a number, with the 25th movie being from 2022. I don't really care. I don't really care. I mean, fuck. Jeremy Johns did his top 10 video, and his number 10 option was from like the 90s. So here you go. But either way, fantastic movie. And I think the most striking thing about this movie is straight up the cinematography, and that is one of the biggest takeaways from this. The cinematography in this movie is just beautiful. But even the story, it's haunting, because it's about this priest who is going to an Irish country. That's a weird way to word it. I mean, he's going to Ireland, and he's trying to set up like a church there, and whatever goes with it. But it's basically his struggle with religion. And I've discussed this a little bit in the past and in some of my prior videos, but I guess you could say I'm struggling with religion. I mean, I really don't like saying struggling, because I just have negative connotations with that. I'm interested in religion. Let's just go with that. Just seeing this perspective on religion as well, seeing how a non-believer who's technically one of the heads of the churches is also interpreting his religion and what he considers right and wrong. I really liked it. I thought that was very interesting. I know I'm running out of words right off the bat, but that's all I have to say. It's interesting. And the cinematography in this movie was just amazing. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, I know there's not a snowball chance in hell, but I would love for this to be nominated for Best Cinematography at the Oscars. Not a snowball chance in hell. I'm pretty sure it's on the short list for Best International Films, but I don't even think it's going to get that. So let alone a cinematography nomination, no, not a snowball chance in hell. But I really liked it. I thought it was an amazing movie. I really liked it. Next up at number 19, we have Killers in the Flower Moon. And this may be a bit controversial. Why is it so low? Now, I'll be honest. Yes, it's a great movie. It is a great movie. I thought it was, great. I think Martin Scorsese, the fact that he is still doing movies at his age, at like 90 years old, is amazing. DiCaprio and De Niro are giving really good performances. Lily Gladstone, I think, is giving another good performance. But for me, there's a certain element of the movie that I'm just a little bit disappointed by, and part of it could be the fact that it's like 3 hours long. The length of time kind of works to its disadvantage at times in this movie, but I'm also not going to take away that I'm not, just because of that, I'm not going to say, oh, this is a bad movie. Just because I didn't connect with certain elements in the story, I'm going to say it's a bad movie. Keep in mind, this is still a film by one of the greatest auteurs in all of cinema. I'm not going to disregard it just like that. At the end of the day, I still thought it was a great movie. I thought De Niro, I thought DiCaprio, I thought Gladstone, they all gave good performances. The one thing I guess I would say about Gladstone's performance, and it's not even more so her performance, but the reaction to her performance, and I still think she should be nominated under supporting actress, not lead actress. Out of the female cast, yes, she is the most lead out of everybody, but for me, that's still so much a supporting role. I just don't know how or why she's being nominated as a lead actress. I don't know. That's the one thing maybe that's the one nitpick I have with the whole movie. That Lily Gladstone's character, again, I thought she'd give a really good performance, but I never really connected with her as much as I probably should have. I don't know, that's the one thing that I think for me, that's the one linchpin in this movie that makes me really disappointed. It's I wasn't able to connect as much with Lily Gladstone's character, and I don't really know how to feel about that, because at the end of the day, she is the emotional linchpin of this movie. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a great movie, still good performances all around the board. I mean, the cinematography is amazing, the direction, the writing, the rest is amazing. Even if I didn't connect with it, I mean, it'd be a travesty. It'd be ludicrous for me to say that, no, this is a bad movie, because, what the fuck at that point? So, yeah. So next up, we have Megan, or May 3, again, I guess, if you want to get technical with it. Overall, I thought this was a really fun movie. And again, I didn't expect to have this much fun watching this movie, because this movie came out very early on in the year, back in 2023. So for the longest time, all I knew about Megan was the weird meme that she's dancing down the hallway, and for some reason that just really turned me off, because that's the only thing you're talking about this movie. The fuck? Yeah, so for the longest time, it kind of just seemed like kind of a meme movie in that sense, until I finally saw it. And honestly, that dance thing that everybody used it for memes and promotion, wasn't really that big of a thing in the movie. Everybody just kind of made it seem like it was such a bigger thing, so I don't know what that was really about. But overall, it's a really creepy movie. Let's go with that. It's a really creepy movie, because, I mean, it's basically child's play on acid, in a sense, because you have, again, this life-size doll trying to kill people, and in this case, unlike Chucky, he's Megan is trying to defend someone they care about, so to speak, or the program to care about, so to speak. Overall, I thought it was really good. The kills were goddamn amazing. I mean, I know I just said that the dance scene didn't really mean much, but the death that comes with it, god damn, like that was a very gruesome death. It was kind of a 2-for-1 special because it was 2 deaths for the price of 1. Some really creepy deaths. Overall, just really great. And again, with the messaging, with like I've said with some of these previous movies, the messaging in this movie is again surprisingly profound because you do have this stance on attachment theory in psychology. For attachment theory, when somebody has gone through trauma, they're trying to attach themselves to make themselves feel better to the person who could provide them that sense of care, that sense of warmth, so to speak, that sense of protection. And the fact that Katie, the child, was able to find that in Megan, who's a robot. In all reality, that is a huge portion of the movie that they discuss to a surprising degree, but in such a good way that it's like you don't really notice it, so to speak. It's like, holy shit, like again, it's just I'm just really surprised that they tackled that in this movie. And I have heard they're gonna do a sequel to this. I'm very interested to see how the sequel turns out. Megan, that's what I have here. On to the next. Number 17, time to get controversial, The Sound of Freedom. Okay, so for this movie, I'm not even going to touch any of the controversy that came out of this movie in regards to Jim Caviezel and his views on politics, or the whole QAnon crap that was revolving around this, or the fact that Ballard, the real Tim Ballard, he made a new organization around the time of this movie, and he was also accused of SA, or I'm not going to touch any of that. I don't care to. That's beyond the scope of what this movie is trying to focus on. I'm just taking this as a movie in and of itself. And honestly, this is a movie that was so powerful. And here's the thing, because I remember I saw a lot of comments around this time, again, criticizing Jim Caviezel, Sam Ballard, or the organization as a whole, like, oh my gosh, they didn't do this correct, or they shouldn't have been doing this, they shouldn't be doing that, they're exploiting this section in the movie because of this, and that, whatever. To a certain degree, I don't care, because at the end of the day, you're still bringing awareness to these issues that are very prevalent in our society. Just because you're blind to them, and just because the organization as a whole maybe isn't up to par, so to speak, just because they're not doing things by the book, so to speak, which again, I'm not really going to comment on, that shouldn't really affect what the message of this movie is doing, which is bringing awareness to it. And yes, it does get into a very heavy action spectacle in the last act. And yes, even Ballard has said, hey, that's not how it went down at all. Period. That event never happened. But again, the fact that they're, one, making a statement with this movie, and two, entertaining the audience while also giving that statement to the audience, I think is very powerful. And I'm not gonna lie, the opening minutes to this movie are some of the most disturbing, creepiest, it's one of the most disturbing or creepiest scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time. I'm not even gonna lie. The opening minutes to this movie is like, it made me feel weird. It made me feel disgusted. Like, for that, just because of that scene alone, it made the list. Look, the acting is great. The story is great for what it is, or because of the subject matter. Again, I'm not gonna touch the whole QAnon, Jim Caviezel, Ballard essay bullshit right now. I'm not here for that. I'm ignoring that. I'm separating the art from the artist, so to speak, and the art is damn near amazing, and that's why it's on the list. Number 16, Beau is Afraid. Jesus Christ. Okay, this is a trip of a movie. Jesus Christ. Like, it's one of those movies that I'm still thinking about, like, what the fuck was going on? And it's such a let's see if I get this correctly. It's such a Kafkian, is it Kafkian or Kafskian? But that word type of movie, like, because you don't know what the fuck is going on. In a sense, like, you're trying to follow along throughout this movie, and in a lot of sense of the word, this movie is just visuals. It's just these moments that lead up to one huge moment at the end, which is the underwater trial, or the pool trial. I really don't know how to describe that, but like, it's one of those movies you definitely need to rewatch more and more to like really get a sense of the story. And in a lot of ways, I'm not gonna lie, in a lot of ways it kind of reminds me of something like Jacob's Ladder, or Johnny Darko, where you have this really trip of a movie that clearly has a message, and you kind of have to rewatch it several times over to maybe possibly understand what that message is. And I mean, clearly, I mean, part of it has to do with, for this movie, I think part of the message clearly is like, again, that attachment theory that we discussed in Megan. I think that definitely has something to do with it, but there's definitely a consumerism message in there as well, and something about abandonment issues. Again, it's one of those movies I do definitely need to watch again. I will say the three, like, it's another like long movie, like, almost 3 hours long, whereas like that's another trek to watch, so to speak. But like overall, just the visuals, the trippy ass story that sometimes makes no sense. I don't know. It's like it's. I think because of that alone, that's what makes it great. That's what, because it's so trippy, such a drug trip sometimes. I think that's what makes it great. And of course, the production design, the acting by Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. I mean, the other elements, the directing, of course, is amazing. Even the cinematography, I would say, is amazing. Just all these elements combined into one. It's just, oh, what the fuck was, like, that's really it. What the fuck was this film in the best way possible? At number 15, we have Sly. So this is the Sylvester Stallone biopic documentary. It's one of those things that I think while watching this movie, this documentary, I kind of realized that low key, Stallone may actually be one of my favorite actors. It's, or in the sense, I mean, he's definitely an endearing actor, and that, yes, you could say he's picked roles that maybe aren't the best for him, like the Expendables, especially Expendables 4 that came out last year, which I haven't seen, but a lot of people criticized. You know, like, there's definitely roles that he's done in the past that maybe aren't the best. But overall, you can't deny the likability of Stallone, especially from his story, from how he, you know, grew up and you know, made Rocky, how he had to sell his dog. There's all these stories about him having to sell his dog in order to buy food for, you know, his first film, even before Rocky, was technically a porn film, you know, and him using everything he can at that time to make Rocky, and then eventually advance through life and advance through his career. And you know, he talks here about his relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was kind of funny in the way he described it, because he was always like, oh yeah, we were duking it out, you know, we were trying to always one up each other. But you also have these other very tender moments with Stallone that you just don't expect. Like, he talks about his relationship with his father, and how in a lot of ways it wasn't maybe the best relationship, because a lot of what his father was teaching him was based off, of course, his father's experiences, but was basically a very masculine sort of teaching that sometimes he didn't jive with. Just seeing his story just play out through the entirety of this movie, and again, going all the way from Rocky to basically modern day to now, was again very profound, very amazing, and yeah. At number 14, we have Society of the Snow. So this is one of those movies that once I heard what it's about, I was very, very excited to watch it, because I'll be honest, this disaster, I'm not too familiar with it. I know the basic details, like, oh yeah, a Chilean plane crashed in the mountains, people survived there, they cannibalized at one point, and then they were saved. So like, I knew the very bare minimum of it, but I didn't really know the story of it. And seeing the story of it was just like, holy shit, like, because I mean, this is a survival story at the end of the day. This is a survival story, and yes, people die in the process. That's just the way of life, in a sense. But again, just seeing the tenacity, I guess that's the best word to use, the tenacity of all these survivors, even those who die at the end. Seeing how they're able to survive, especially before they commit cannibalism, was just very amazing. And there's a lot of elements here that are just great throughout the movie. Of course, I mean, the plane crash was surprisingly well done. Like, it's one of those things, like, if they're going to cheat on anything, like, you know, be cheap on anything, I thought it would have been the plane crash. But no, they actually did a really great job with the plane crash. It looked very realistic, and I really did like it. I really did enjoy it. You know, seeing these people struggle to survive within the elements day in and day out until they just almost couldn't, and they decided to basically rescue themselves, was just amazing. It's, in a lot of ways, it is a very inspiring story, despite the cannibalism and everything that goes with that. But even then, it's one of those things, like, how much are you going to do, or what, you know, what's it going to take for you to actually survive? And you know, it's one of those things that you can't really say what you will and won't do until you're actually put in that situation. So yeah, just a very, very amazing story. And I kind of wonder if this will be nominated for best makeup and hairstyling at the Oscars. I kind of wonder about that one. I don't think it will, but I think there's a possibility that it could. I don't know. I'll see. That's a nomination I'd be very excited for this to get. I'm not sure if it will win. I don't think it will win, but I would hope that it at least gets this nomination. Society of the Snow, great movie. Next up, we have Sisu, which is basically like Finnish or Norwegian or Swedish John Wick. I don't remember. Country is right there. Yeah, Sisu basically means, you know, someone who can't die, or it's basically someone who's unable to die or is immortal, essentially. So yeah, you basically have an immortal John Wick kicking ass against the Nazis. And well, yeah, that sounds like a great movie. And it was a very fun movie. It's a very great movie. It's like action packed. It's the type of movie that like this is what I want. This is what I'm getting. This is art. This violence, this action is art. It's very fun. I loved it the whole way through. It very much is like John Wick in a lot of ways. And I am curious if they're gonna do sequels to this, because there definitely is a possibility for them to do sequels or even prequels, because of the way they've set up the story. So I'm very curious if they could or they want to do that. I very much would love to return SAC so kick more ass. I think it'd be great. Overall, just a really fun movie, really great movie, and it's exactly what I expected in the best way possible. Next up, number 12, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I feel like this is a movie that not many people are going to have on their list. If anything, I've already seen it on a few worst of 2023 lists, but I'll be honest, I really enjoy this movie. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that I'm just a huge Hunger Games fan, both from the books and the movies. And look, I'm not going to lie, the movies aren't perfect. I'm not the biggest fan of Mockingjay Part 1. I mean, I didn't really think that they needed to split the Mockingjay book into 2 movies, but that was all the craze back then, so they did it. But honestly, this movie was really good. Now, I do think that the last third of the movie, the third act of this movie kind of falls flat, kind of is very rushed in the way they do it. And I also feel part of it also has to do with the fact that there's just some things that don't really translate well from book to film. I do think there is that issue, especially towards the end. But overall, I thought it was really great. And honestly, Rachel Zegler, because I know I did a video earlier this year, or last year, I did a video last year defending Rachel Zegler. And honestly, yeah, I'm happy I defended her. Because honestly, this movie, the way she acted in this movie was great. And I'm not going to have Shazam 2 on this list, but I also want to comment on it very fast. But I thought even Rachel Zegler's performance in Shazam 2 was really good. I didn't think she was given the best material to work with, but I think what she did in that movie was really good. And honestly, I do think she's a really good actress. I think I am starting to become a fan of her as an actress overall, and a huge part of it has to do with what she did in this movie. Now, that's not to say that Tom Blythe, is that the guy who portrays Coriolanus Snow, President Snow, in his younger years? I thought he also did a fantastic job. I think overall, this movie, for the most part, does work. I just do think there are certain elements that maybe just didn't translate as well from book to screen. I think the ending, the last act, was very rushed, part of it because of the translation. I think the one thing that also kind of suffers is the fact that since the Hunger Games itself, it's in the middle of the movie in the second act. Unlike prior Hunger Games movies, we don't get as much time with the other contestants, with the competition as much. So you don't really get their perspective as much in terms of who they are as characters past, oh, that's the enemy and they need to die. But overall, I mean, those two things aside, I thought overall still a fun movie, a really good movie. And again, part of it could just be because I love the Hunger Games. So here we are now. At number 11, we have Maestro. Now, I'm not going to lie. This movie really has gone down the list with me, because I'll be honest, initially I had this at number 2. I'm not even gonna lie. For some time I did have this at number 2, and then I rewatched it and it kind of fell down, so to speak. I mean, it's at number 11. From number 2 to 11 is a very drastic drop. So what happened? What happened with this movie? I think the first time I saw it, I kind of just fell in love with the story, with the cinematography, with the romance between Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan's characters. I think there's a lot of elements I just, on the first go around, that I kind of just fell in love with, so to speak, and then rewatching it time and time again, because I've seen it twice, so time and time again. I think the second time I saw a lot of the issues that a lot of people were commenting on, especially with the pacing, and I have to agree that the pacing is the biggest issue, and I think part of it has to do with the writing to a certain extent. It's not as strongly written as it likes itself to believe, so to speak. And I think because of that, that is part of the reason why it has gone so down for me from 2 to 11. That being said, Bradley Cooper definitely is going for his Oscar in this film. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win. I think right now the race is pretty much set between Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti, surprisingly. The performances are amazing. The score, of course, is amazing. I mean, it's goddamn Leonard Bernstein. One of the best composers we ever had, period, especially in modern times. So, the score is amazing. The cinematography is also really amazing. The editing, the way it goes with it. There are shots here that still linger with me. The very one that stands out, aside from of course, a 6-minute long orchestra, but even like the first shot where it's basically a one shot of him coming out of his bed and going into the auditorium, him talking with his wife, and his really wide shots of the use of black and whites and colors in this movie. The cinematography is amazing. I just think that the what kind of falters is the story and the pacing of the whole movie. And sometimes, I'll admit with some of the critics that sometimes you don't really know where you are time wise, because one moment you're in like 1950 and then the next moment you're in 1965. That has been one of the major criticisms of this movie, and on a second go around I kind of agree with it. But it is what it is, and it's still a really great movie. It's definitely gonna get a bunch of nominations when the Oscar comes, for sure. That's without a doubt. The only question is which ones will it win. If it will win anything, we shall see. At number 10, we have Beyond Utopia, another documentary. And this is the highest placing documentary I have on the list, if I'm not mistaken. And this is about the story of a bunch of North Koreans trying to escape North Korea. And you have one of the stories here is a family of like 4 or 5. It's mom, dad, grandma, and like 2 or 3 children. So 5, 6, right? They're all trying to escape from North Korea. They're going to China, and they have to basically reach Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken, before they can actually go to South Korea and become free and liberated. Like that's one story. There's another story of this woman who already escaped North Korea, and she's in South Korea living, and she's trying to or her son wants to get out of North Korea, and he gets captured in the process of escaping, and this mother just literally losing money trying to get information on her son until she can't anymore, because there's just no more information to give her, because he's disappeared. Disappeared. That was a very heartbreaking story. I mean, overall, this whole movie is very heartbreaking in a somber way, and in a lot of ways, it's bittersweet, because you have the contrast between this one family who is reunited, so to speak, because they do have other family who has already previously escaped North Korea, and they already live in South Korea, and you have this one family who's reunited in South Korea, and then another family, mother and son, who are separated in South Korea. And yeah, I mean, there's even stuff that the son was trying to bring the mother back into North Korea. Like, there's stuff like that. Like, it's a very bittersweet moment. It's a very bittersweet movie in a lot of ways, but it's also the movie I think I want to say it's maybe the movie here that's maybe still I'm thinking about it. It's the one that is still making me wonder. It's the one that's like making me research stuff. Even more than Sound of Freedom, for example. Even I'm trying to, because I have the list right here. Yeah, I would say this is probably the movie that's made me think the most. There's one more movie that's made me think a lot, but in a different way. Yeah, this is just a very bittersweet movie, and I definitely do think y'all should watch it for sure. At number 9, I have The Killer. And this is a movie I'm surprised not many people are talking about. I'm just very surprised by it, because it's David Fincher, it's Michael Fassbender. It's a comic book movie. It's a French comic. It's based on that. It's got Kate Blanchett, this is a movie I'm just surprised on not that many people are talking about it. And the ones who are talking about it think it's a very average film. And I think maybe for David Fincher standards, I could see it being an average film. But even for movies of this year alone, I don't really think it's an average film. I think it's very striking. It's very deliberate in what it's trying to do. Seeing the day in the life, so to speak, of this killer, this assassin, played by Michael Fassbender, and what he's trying to do, him on the job, and how he slowly begins to unravel after a certain event takes place at his home, when they almost tried to kill him at his home, even though he wasn't there. So they almost kill his girlfriend and, I guess, butler? I guess you could say butler, assistant, whatever. Yeah, it's a movie I'm surprised that the way people are talking about it isn't as highly as I probably expected. I mean, it's got a fantastic action scene in a bathroom, or like throughout this house that ends in a bathroom. One of the best action scenes in this year, which says a lot, because there's stuff like Sisu, Guardians of the Galaxy, John Wick, Spider-Verse, and I'll be honest, one from The Killers is, I'm not sure if it's the best action scene, but it's definitely one of the best action scenes. It's definitely not the best action scene. Fucking John Wick took the cake on that one, but it's definitely got one of the best action scenes. And again, I'm just surprised that not many people are talking about this movie, which I find very odd. Look, if you want to say it's an average David Fincher movie, I think that's one thing, and I guess valid. But if you guys want to say it's an average movie from this year in general, I would completely disagree. I think this is one of the best movies of this year. It's one of the best made movies of this year, and watch it. At number 8, we have Oppenheimer. So yeah, the whole Barbieheimer. I did buy Barbieheimer when it happened. That was very fun experience. especially because that was after I hadn't gone to the theater in a long time. It's one of those things that I'm starting to go to theaters a lot more often in the past year. Watching this Barbenheimer, Oppenheimer, and Barbie back to back. Well, I saw Barbie first and then Oppenheimer. Seeing them back to back was just a very fun experience. And again, similar to Scorsese, the fact that we have one of our auteur directors making a 3-hour movie that's still constantly engaging, it's just amazing. Robert Downey Jr. is going for his goddamn Oscar here. Cillian Murphy is going for his goddamn Oscar here. Christopher Nolan is going for Best Picture and Best Director. Like, everybody here is going for their Oscars, and I think they're going to get it. I legitimately think that they're going to get it. I legit think that Oppenheimer is going to get Best Picture, is going to win Best Picture, Best Director. RDJ is going to win Best Supporting Actor, and then Cillian Murphy will get Best Actor. The only competition there is really Paul Giamatti, surprisingly. I say surprisingly because I thought that's a performance that although I really did like, Paul Giamatti in Holdovers, which we're going to get to in a bit. I legitimately thought that a lot of people are going to take more notice of Bradley Cooper and Maestro. So that's why I say I'm kind of surprised that people took more to Holdovers than Maestro. But that's besides the point. Overall, like, this is an amazing movie. It's a great movie. Like, everything that was done in this movie, like even the experiment on the atomic bomb with at the Manhattan Project, even the sound design, because I don't really talk about sound design that often, but this was amazing sound design throughout the whole movie, especially with the delayed reaction sound, delayed sound in the movie when the bomb explodes. Like, yeah, because that's how it would be in real life, or that's how it was in real life. I mean, overall, which is an amazing movie, great movie, and I can't wait for RDJ, Cillian Murphy, and Chris Nolan to win their Oscars in next month, in a month or two, whenever the Oscars are. Speaking of Barbenheimer, number 7, we have Barbie. So yeah, I'll admit, I like Barbie just a tad bit more than Oppenheimer. Part of it had to do with the fact that just Barbie is a bit more rewatchable, in my opinion. This could be a very simple way of putting it, but I also just felt like the topics that Barbie was covering, for obvious reasons, were presented in a lot more lighter mood. And because of that, it was just a more digestible movie. And of course, it's shorter. Like, I don't remember how long Barbie is, but it's definitely not as long as Oppenheimer is. That's for damn sure. Margot Robbie gave a great performance. Ryan Gosling gave a great performance. I'm surprised he's getting nominated all over the place, because part of it has to do with the fact that just comedies aren't nominated that often at these award shows, Oscars, Golden Globes, Emmys, whatever. So I'm just surprised that he's getting nominated as much as he is. Overall, it's still a great movie. All the songs I think are the one thing that kind of threw me off a little bit at first. I didn't take to them as immediately as other people, but eventually I did come over to the songs. With I'm just Ken is probably the best song on that soundtrack. But I'm Just Ken, Dance the Night Away, the Billie Eilish song, which I forget what it's called right now, but there you go. Overall, a really fun movie, a really great movie, and the production design for this movie is amazing. I almost guarantee that's gonna win. I almost guarantee. I think maybe if Asteroid City gets nominated, maybe that could win. I kind of hope that it doesn't though, because I thought Asteroid City was a bore of a movie. But yeah, on to number 6. At number 6, we have Elemental. And again, similar to The Killer, this is a movie where I didn't understand where all the hate was coming from, with a lot of people calling it average. I feel part of it has to do with the fact that it was just a very mismarketed movie in a lot of ways. But I'll be honest, I really liked this movie. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried at the end of the movie when Ember had to leave her family, and they did their special, like, ritualistic goodbye. I legitimately cried, and overall, it was just, and again, it's a very cozy movie in a lot of ways, and it's a Pixar movie. Like, what do you want me to say? It's a Pixar movie. Then again, Disney came out with Wish, and yeah, that was rough. But still, that's how I'm gonna describe it. It's a very, in a weird way, it's a very cozy movie, and in a lot of ways, it basically is Romeo and Juliet, because opposites attract. You have these two families that shouldn't be together, but it's interesting how the water, Wade and his family were so accepting of Ember. Yeah, Ember's family was not that accepting of Wade initially, and even the way just Wade's character overall is just honestly a bright spot, which is funny because he's water, and the bright spot should be Ember, who's literal fire. I just thought Wade was such a fun character to be around. I think for me, that's what made the movie. Just Wade as a character, the way he was written, the way he was portrayed, that's what made the movie for me. Overall, it was a very fun movie. I really liked it. It was a very cozy movie. And I'm not gonna lie, the ending really got to me, and I cried. At number 5, we have Past Lives. So like I was saying with Beyond Utopia, there is maybe one movie that made me think even more then Beyond Utopia, and it was this one, Past Lives. And this is such a heartbreaking film, Jesus Christ, because it's basically about lost love, and I feel like we've all had that moment where we love someone and it just didn't go our way because of whatever factors that happens because of life, and in a lot of ways you just have to let go. And and that's the part that really got me, the letting go part, because I personally have a real big struggle when it comes to letting go. And I think and part of it's also, this is also part of the reason why I also really liked Elemental. It's just that aspect of letting go. You have to let go, and sometimes letting go is the best thing that there is. And that's something I'm slowly, me personally, I'm slowly trying to come to terms with that. I'm trying to let go with a lot of stuff that happened to me in my past, not just love and relationships, but just in general life stuff. But the fact that this was attached with love, I think that's what made it harder. And even then, you do have this very sweet friendship, because it's not really a love story at the end. It's more of a breakup story in a lot of senses. The fact that you still have this really good friendship regardless of the situation, I really did like it, because it is also one of those questions like, oh, can exes be friends? And I'm like, exes can be friends, especially in this case. I'm not sure if they'll ever contact each other again after this movie. Like in the world of this movie, I'm not sure if they ever actually do contact each other again. I would like for them to contact each other again. But if they never contact each other, that could also be a very valid ending for both of them, and it would make sense. The acting across for all three of them are great. I'm surprised that John McGarrow isn't getting more recognition for this movie. Even in critic reviews, he's not getting that recognition. It's mostly Greta Lee and Tail Yu, and that's not to say that they didn't do great jobs. I just kind of wish people would recognize John McGarrow's work a bit more. And I really hope Greta Lee gets into the Oscars for Best Actress. She's not going to win. But I really hope she does get the nomination at the very least. Next up, we have Anatomy of a Fall. And Jesus Christ, this was a surprisingly intense movie. And I thought everybody here across the job did a fantastic job, especially Sandra Hüller, who was also in Zone of Interest, which again I really want to see. I can't wait to see it. And the kid actor, I forget his name right now. I know his character's name was Daniel, because we shared the same goddamn name for obvious reasons. So remember his character's name. But overall, I thought this was such an intense movie. I thought the court battles, essentially, because that's essentially what they were. The court battles, the court debates, the court scenes, whatever. They were really great. They were really intense. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, overall, this is just a surprisingly tension-filled movie in general. And I really liked it. I thought it was very powerful because of that. And the one thing, I'm not even sure if it's a problem of the movie per se, because I don't really see it as a problem. I could definitely see some people seeing this as a problem, but it's the fact that I always thought that Sandra Hüller's character was always innocent. During the court trials, they're trying to imply that, oh, she killed her husband. She's the one who killed her husband. But I'm like, but it's one of those things from the very beginning, I never believed that she killed her husband. It's very interesting to see those debates, because there are some people who do think that she killed her husband, whereas I don't, and I never believed it for a second. I always thought that she was innocent, and there was nothing in the movie that really made me think that she was guilty. Even the huge argument scene, that's maybe the standout scene of the movie. Even that scene, like, yes, they possibly just didn't have the best marriage, but I don't think that's enough for her to want to kill them. Maybe it would have been nice to have a bit more of that mystery, so to speak, in there on the did she or did she not kill him aspect of it. But for me, I am not bothered by that. I know some people are bothered by that, especially those who, regardless of which way you think, whether she didn't kill him or she did kill him. I have seen some comments that I just wish it would have been a bit more murky in that sense. But honestly, I didn't take issue with that. And overall, I thought this was a great movie, suspenseful movie, a very tense movie, a very well-written movie, and it just won Best Screenplay at the Grammys, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, not the Grammys. Not the Grammys, definitely not the Grammys. At the Emmys. Emmys or Golden Globes. It won at an award show recently, and that really brought its prospects up. And hopefully it gets nominated for Best Screenplay at the Oscars. I'm not sure if it would win. I'm not sure if it would win. I think it'd be kind of a challenge for it to win, but I would love for it to be nominated for Best Screenplay, Best Picture for sure, and Best Actress for Sandra Hüller at the very least. At the very least for Sandra Hüller for this movie. Overall, just a great movie, a very tension-filled movie, and I loved it. I loved it. At number 3, Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse. And I think the most disappointing aspect of this movie is the fact that it's a part 1, essentially. Because, yeah, it's a part 1, and the way it ends, it's a hell of a cliffhanger. And honestly, given how the animation departments are kind of essentially striking in their own right, or they're about to strike in their own right, because they want fair pay and fair, values. They want to be valued more for their work, which again, understandable. As an actor, I completely understand, and hopefully their union doesn't fuck them over like the SAG just did with us and the voice actors recently. Fuck SAG. But off of that topic. But yeah, we're not gonna see part two for a long, long time, for like at least another 3 to 4 years. So we have to basically contend with this movie. And the part one ism of it aside, it's still a very great movie. It's a very, of course, it's amazingly animated. You bring some new animation techniques. I mean, you have Lego stop motion essentially for a portion of this movie, for like 2-3 minutes of this movie, which is just like kind of hysterical. I just didn't expect that, and especially because it was like by this kid who they just found off the road, so to speak, or found on the road, so to speak. Like, it was some kid who like does this on his spare time and like, hey, do you want to animate for a movie? And he was like, yes. And now we got that. So that was very funny, very inspiring hearing that story. But overall, just the whole thing with Miles trying to like reconnect in a lot of ways with his family, but then also trying to reconnect with Gwen and what she's been going through. Honestly, I think just Miles' story throughout this whole movie was just very amazing. Him becoming into his own, because it's one of those things. In the first movie, he was just a baby, so to speak. And yes, he was becoming Spider-Man, but I think now he's really becoming into his own. And just having the concept of like these canon events going throughout, and all the cameos and Easter eggs that came from that. Seeing, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and all that stuff. Seeing Donald Glover as Prowler. And apparently that's the MCU version of it as well. So I'm like, holy shit. So I guess MCU did one thing right, aside from Guardians of the Galaxy 2 this year. I mean, overall, just the story here was really great. And again, it's that story of Spider-Man, of Miles Morales really becoming his own at this point, and I think that's the part of it that I really grasped onto and just loved. I just loved it. At number 2, I have John Wick Chapter 4. Look, I love the John Wick franchise. It's one of the best action franchises in recent years, and look, if this is the last John Wick movie we get, fantastic. This is a fantastic end for the movie. That being said, I mean, I know we have Ballerina, so that's going to come out, I think, this year, which I'm not too excited about, just because of the fact that it has Ana de Armas. If I'm being honest, I just don't think she's that good of an actress in general, so that honestly really tempered my excitement for Ballerina. But I also know, I'm pretty sure John Wick 5 is already confirmed. So I think that's the one thing, that the fact that John Wick 5 is already confirmed kind of like lessens the impact, the ending of this movie to a certain degree. But just overall, like, that aside, overall, just this movie, it is balls to the walls action everywhere, from Osaka to Paris. Just what the fuck, like the action. This is one of those movies where like the action takes precedent, and the action is what you come for. That the whole Osaka fight scene, of course, the scene at the apartment where he's literally shooting grenades, like flammable grenades or whatever that was, flammable bullets onto people. The stairway fight, the staircase fight, just like what the fuck, And then you also have some, aside from John Wick himself, you also have these other characters like the Tracker or Mr. Nobody, Donnie Yen's character Kane. You have all these, of course, Winston, all these other characters who, like, you see where they're coming from, especially given the events of the previous films. And I think the way they culminate in this movie is just very amazing. And there's that whole thing, did John Wick die or not? I'll be honest, even before knowing that John Wick 5 was a thing, if that's even officially confirmed, by the way, but even before I knew that, I'm like, well, they're not gonna kill John Wick off. And even the way they set it up, I'm like, I don't think he died. If I'm being honest, I don't necessarily think he died. If anything, I think he did something. I think he just did the killer, Michael Fassbender, the killer, where he faked his death, so to speak, and just left and is living in anonymity. I think, honestly, that's what happened at the end. Overall, either way, such a great movie. The action just balls to the fucking walls. Action, fun, just a fun movie. Just a fun movie. And again, sometimes that is all you need. You just need a fun movie. And at number 1, I have The Holdovers. And this, for me, is the definition of a cozy movie. This is one of those movies that just really took me by surprise. Especially, and I think part of it has to do because of the fact that I watched it during the Christmas season, and this is basically a Christmas movie. Despite what Alexander Payne wants to say, this is a Christmas movie. I don't know why Alexander Payne, by the way, is pretending like this is a Christmas movie. He's like, I'm disgusted that this is a Christmas movie. I don't understand why people are saying this is a Christmas movie. It's like, because, motherfucker, you made a Christmas movie. I don't know why the hell you're so surprised by that. But yeah, no, this is, that little rant aside. such a cozy movie. That's really what I have to say. This is such a cozy movie. Get some hot chocolate, have a campfire, fireplace right there, light the fire, and just watch with your blankets in the snow. This is basically the type of movie that this is. It is such a cozy movie, and it's about these three people, accepting each other for who they are, despite the fact that they all don't really get along. It's just them accepting them for each of their faults, and then how it ends. I'll be honest, it's very bittersweet. It's very bittersweet in the way it ends, but in the best way possible, and I really liked it. It's very fun. It's very cozy. I've seen it a number of times by this point. It's a fun movie. It's a cozy, very fun movie. It's a very heartwarming movie, and I don't think Paul Giamatti is gonna win the Oscar because Cillian Murphy, if I'm being honest. And I'm surprised that he's number 2 to win the Oscar, possibly, because I legit thought he would be number 3, again, behind Bradley Cooper for Maestro, because of what he did in that movie and how he did it, and because of everything he's done for that movie. But I'll be honest, if Paul Giamatti wins the Oscar for this movie, I'll be so happy. I'll be so happy. I don't think it's gonna happen because Cillian Murphy, but I'll be so happy. I'll be so happy. Look, it's gonna win. It's gonna win at the very least. It's gonna win Best Supporting Actress because Divine Joy Randolph has won every single awards on that since it began. So it's at least gonna get 1 Oscar. It's probably gonna get it's definitely gonna get Best Picture. It may get Best Director. That one I'm not too sure about, but it could get Best Director. Best Screenplay for sure. Maybe Best Cinematography. I could maybe see it getting that one. I'm not too sure about that one, but if it gets it, I wouldn't be upset. But overall, this is such a cozy movie, and I really did like it, and that's what I tell my number 1 for the top 25 movies of this year or last year. This is my number 1. So before I end the video, I do want to give a few honorable mentions very fast. First off, I have Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. So yeah, this is basically Michael J. Fox and his story from even before Back to the Future, and how he was struggling to become an actor, and how he finally became an actor, broke out into the mainstream with Back to the Future and Teen Wolf, and then his whole thing with Parkinson's. Overall, just a really good movie. I think the reason I just didn't put it on the list at the end is because of the fact that I'm just not as well connected to Michael J. Fox as I am to Stallone, for example. Next up, I have Rustin, and honestly, Colman Domingo is a fantastic actor. He's one of my favorite actors of all time, straight up. I would definitely have him on the top 10 list there. He carried this movie. In a lot of ways, he did carry this movie. I did think that the story for this movie lacked in certain aspects, but I think overall he carried this movie, and I really hope that he gets the Oscar nomination for this movie. It seems like he will. It's one of those things that, surprisingly, it's between him and DiCaprio who may get that Oscar, that 5th place spot. And DiCaprio, straight up, is my favorite actor of all time, but I wouldn't be upset if he gets passed over for Colman Domingo in this movie. I don't think he's going to win. Again, not a snowball chance at all, but I would love to call Colman Domingo a Oscar-nominated actor. I think that would be great. A great thing. Next up, I have El Conde. So this is a Netflix movie. It's a Spanish vampire movie, and honestly, this is a horror comedy in the best way possible. I really liked it. I thought everything about it was really good. It was very funny. Definitely do go check it out. Next up, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Peaches, 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 Peaches. I'm kind of surprised that the song Peaches is kind of tapering off in terms of nominations. I legit thought this was going to be like Barbie, one of the 3 Barbie songs versus Peaches. Barbie was always going to win. No, don't get me wrong. I'm surprised it's not going to get nominated for best song. Then again, one of these spots is going to fucking Diane Warren either way. So take that for what you will. But yeah, overall, again, I had a lot of fun with this movie. It's a video game movie, and overall, it's just a very fun movie. And next up, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan, and that's why it's an honorable mention. I think part of the reason it kind of just missed the list at the end is because it's not as memorable as I thought it would be, if I'm being honest, and I think that's the one fault this movie has. But overall, it's a really good movie. It's a really fun movie, and again, I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan, and that's why it's going to be an honorable mention. And then the last honorable mention I have here is The Last Voyage of Demeter. Again, this is a very surprising movie. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, even though the story for this movie is lacking in a lot of parts, and in a lot of ways, it's kind of predictable because, again, it takes place it's basically just one chapter of the overall Dracula novel story. So we already know, because of that, we already know what happens at the end. But regardless, it was still a very surprising movie, despite the fact that I do think there are certain story elements that didn't work as well as it should have. And yeah, those are all the honorable mentions. Those are all the movies on the list. What are you guys' thoughts? Comment all that down below. Let me know. What was your favorite movie of last year? Comment all that. Let me know. And yeah, that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.